Did you know 4,240 books were challenged in 2023? According to the American Library Association's Office for Intellectual Freedom, there were 1,247 attempts to ban or restrict library books and materials in 2023. This tops the previous high from 2022, when 2,571 unique titles were targeted for censorship. 47% of titles targeted in 2023 for censorship happened to represent the voices and lived experiences of BIPOC people and queer people. In America, this week is Banned Books Week. It happens from September 22nd to the 28th. So in this video, I'm gonna read the most challenged books in 2023. Now, I have actually read some of these already, so I'm gonna read the ones that I haven't read. This list is pulled from the ALA's website, so let's just go down the list. Number 1 is Genderqueer by Maya Kobabe, which was targeted for LGBTQ+ and sexually explicit content. I have read this. I DNF'd it, but that was just for my own personal reasons. I know how beloved this book is. All Boys Aren't Blue by George M. Johnson, one of my favorite books that unfortunately is being challenged for LGBTQ+ and sexually explicit content. This book is Gay by Juno Dawson, which was also targeted for the same thing, LGBTQ+ content and sexually explicit content. My friend Rachel over at Reads with Rachel, she does incredible work in her community to stop book banning, and this is a specific book that was banned in her county, so I'll link some of her videos down below where she's defending it. I have read this and loved it. I read this early on in my journey finding out my sexuality and just who I am, and I am so glad this book exists, but it is a disservice that it is being removed from libraries. There are so many kids and peers that would benefit from this book. The Perks of Being a Wallflower, I feel like this has been banned and challenged forever. I remember back in college, when I went to community college, I took an education class and one of my presentations was on book banning. One of the books that were banned was The Perks of Being a Wallflower. I read this in high school and I loved it, and again, it is a disservice to be banned or removed from children's hands. Kids should be able to read this. I believe this is such an important book. It talks about CPTSD, child abuse, and I think it is a very important book for kids to recognize these patterns. It was challenged for LGBTQ+ material, sexually explicit content, drugs, and profanity. It's so funny because yes, it does have a queer character, but like, it's only for a minute. It's barely in there. You blink and miss it. Flamer by Mike Curato, which was challenged for LGBTQ+ content and claimed to be sexually explicit. The Bluest Eye by Toni Morrison, which was challenged for incest, claims to be sexually explicit and EDI content. Tricks by Ellen Hopkins for queer and sexually explicit content. Ellen Hopkins is always being challenged, all of her books, and Rachel also had to go and defend one of her books because it was going to be banned by her county, and I'm like, damn, I've actually never read Ellen Hopkins, so I'll be reading her for the first time in this video. Me, Earl, and the Dying Girl by Jesse Andrews, challenged for sexually explicit content and profanity, and I have read this a long time ago. I've read this and enjoyed it. I believe I read it like my first year or two on booktube. Let's Talk About It by Erika, Moen, and Matthew Dolan for queer and sexually explicit content. And last is Sold by Patricia McCormick, which was challenged for sexually explicit content and I won't be reading this one just because I'm switching it out with another book because I wanted to read this last year, but I didn't get around to it. So here's my TBR. I was very fortunate to be able to get these from my library, and everybody else should have that privilege. I have Flamer by Mike Curato, The Bluest Eye by Toni Morrison, Let's Talk About It, The Teen Guide to Sex, Relationships, and Being Human by Erika, Moen, and Matthew Dolan. This is going to be such an important read. And last, I have Lawn Boy by Jonathan Evison, which was banned here in my area. It's not my area specifically, so I'm going to do the best I can to not dox myself, but I don't live in this area. It's just like in proximity to me, it was removed. So let's talk about it. According to a WHYY article, the book was on a list of 60 books, including The Poet X, The Person Being a Wallflower, and Last Night at the Telegraph Club. Board member Sharon Kalapi said in a February 2022 board meeting, "There's no excuse for not knowing there's controversy about this book before it is brought into our libraries. You know darn well the books I'm talking about, Lawn Boy and all of the others that have graphic sexual content." They also removed genderqueer and this book is gay from school libraries for sexualized content. Her claim, caught on video, was repeated on social media and in news reports, and magnified by prominent politicians, spawning PDF claims in nearly a dozen school districts the Post found. This video's purpose is to bring awareness to book banning. It has not stopped since 2023. Obviously, we don't have the numbers for 2024 yet, but the fact that it was at an all-time high in 2023 is so horrible, and it has not stopped. Libraries are supposed to be a safe space, and the fact that bigots are trying to control our libraries infuriates me to no end. So I would love for us to do whatever we can. I will link resources down below, just articles to how you can help and just read up about book banning. I'm excited to read Lawn Boy because, like I said, I was gonna read it last year, but I never got around to it. I participate in Book Riot's yearly Read Harder challenge, which just has prompts to help you read throughout the year. And one of those last year was to read a book that has been banned in your state. And I actually enjoyed that because it helped me get to know more about what's going on around me. And I didn't even know about Lawn Boy. I've never heard of it, but let's read what it's about together. A deeply real portrait of an everyday Joe just trying to find his way. Evison combines humor, honesty, and anger with an insightful commentary on class that's also an effective coming-of-age novel. For Mike Munoz, life has been a whole lot of waiting for something to happen. Not too many years out of high school and still doing menial work, and just fired from his latest gig as a lawn boy on a landscaping crew, he's smart enough to know that he's got to be the one to shake things up. But how? In this often humorous, sometimes indignant, but always moving novel, best-selling author Jonathan Evison takes the reader into the heart and mind of a young man on a journey to discover himself, a search to find the secret to achieving the American dream of happiness and prosperity. That's the birthright of all Americans, isn't it? If so, then what is Mike Munoz's problem? Determined to find a way out of the hole he was born in and has only made deeper through his own mistakes, Mike sets out to make the world aware that he exists, and in the process learns a rewarding lesson about human will and the power to overcome adversity, not to mention a few unexpected truths about himself. I know that this is queer, obviously because of the ways it has been banned, because people just want to shelter their children. When I was doing projects about book banning in college, all I could think about is people just want to shelter their children, and it just makes no sense. But like Rachel says in all of her videos, which I applaud her for, stop trying to parent other parents' kids. Parent your own kids and leave the rest of us alone. Oh my god, it's so fucking infuriating. And it's more infuriating because we all know that BIPOC children are going to be the most affected by this. And it is just so infuriating to me. Just leave us alone. That is all we want, is you to just leave us alone. Go get a hobby. Like I always say, go golf. Go do something. Go away. We don't want you. Stop it. If you don't want your kid to read something, it's your own dictation. You're able to do that as a parent. I might not agree with you because, like I said, you're sheltering your kids, but it's not my business. But I just can't think of how many kids that are going to grow up, as I did, feeling like there's no option than cis and straight, and it fucking sucks. And I just want all of these kids to be able to feel safe and explore themselves. Queer books are being targeted left and right, but it also is BIPOC people, black people. We've seen All Boys Aren't Blue is being targeted. Flamer has Filipino representation. This has Latina representation. I don't even know what else to say besides it's infuriating. It is so frustrating to know how much this is going to affect a whole generation of kids that should just be able to read these books. And if we can do anything to stop it, that would be great. I know it's going to take a while, but if we can at least do a little something, that would help in the long run. And by reading these books and bringing awareness to them. Also, I believe donating books, especially to like little free libraries and things like that, I think that's a great way. But like I said, I'm very privileged that I was even able to get one of these books. Honestly, I had to get this from another library because my current library didn't even have it. But I don't even think that it's because of book banning. I think it depends on which libraries have enough resources. There's so many things we could talk about libraries getting the resources that they need, but I am here to just bring awareness to these books and to this issue. We're all here for the books, so I'm gonna get started reading. Not with this one, but with this one. As I said, Flamer was challenged 67 times for LGBTQ plus content and claimed to be sexually explicit, and it was removed from a Texas school library, so I'll have that linked in the description. And I'm going to play an excerpt from the author's interview on NPR's Code Switch.
Books like mine, they cherry pick little scenes, little moments in this book. They take it out of context, they share it, and, you know, call it pornography, call it woke propaganda, and they just sideline the bigger picture of the story of saying like, no, I'm just making this so that someone knows their own worth.
You've talked about the way that queer stories are inherently sexualized. Mm-hmm. Do you feel like that's what happened here?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Flamer is a book about a 14-year-old boy. Okay. Mm-hmm. And I think that there's a lot of misinformation about who the audience for this book is. I'm not saying like, hey, here's this book for kindergartners. This is a book about a teenage kid with teenage experiences. And that's life. And I know that there are parents that don't want to believe that their children have sexual feelings. But, I would ask people, like, instead of thinking about your children, think about yourself at 14. Like, that's what I'm working with here, right? I'm thinking about myself at 14 and what that meant to me and, like, how I struggled with it. I think something else that I want to touch on is that what has happened with my book is kind of my worst fear. I started in children's books in 2012. My first book came out in 2014. I went to school for this. It took me 10 years before I got published. And I had a lot of anxiety about being an out gay man in children's publishing because I grew up with the stigma of gay people being pedophiles. And now there are people calling me that. And it's really, I'd love to say that I don't let those things get to me, but truly, I cannot think of something worse that someone could call me. And I do take it very personally. I wrote my book. These other authors wrote their books to help people. These are books that are there to give validation to people's existence. And what these people are saying is that people like Aiden, people like me, shouldn't exist. I mean, that's basically what comes down to when you're saying we can't share that story with children because it's not appropriate. That's all very coded language to say that's not the type of people that we want in this world.
Yeah.
And it kind of, that action, those words just prove why books like this need to exist.
Hi, last night I finished Flamer and oh my god, it was incredible. I wish I had this as a kid. I know this is going to save so many queer teens' lives, and I saw myself so much in this as a kid. Aiden's family are Catholic. He goes to a Catholic school, but for high school, he's going to go to a public school. He has been ridiculed his whole entire life being called gay, and that has led to internalized homophobia and has not given him the proper chance to explore his sexuality. intersectionality. So in Flamer, he is at a Boy Scouts camp for the summer, and he is not having a good time. The boys there are fucking ruthless, but honestly, this is a very real depiction of teenage boys, especially like 13-year-old boys. I love how he mentions that this is written for boys. Like, he has boys in mind and how they are going to be ripped of this story because of the book bannings that are happening with this book. This is such an incredible book. There are trigger warnings for self-harm, racism, and homophobia. Aiden is biracial. He's half Filipino and half Irish, I believe, and the author is as well. And Mike talks about how he wanted to put that into his work. Intersectionality adds another layer. On top of the homophobia, he's experiencing a lot of racism. Like I said, these kids are fucking ruthless. But again, what 13-year-old isn't? I have worked in childcare for over 10 years. I don't work in it anymore, but I did for a long time. Many of the characters in this book, I've met a lot of them. Aside from everything else I mentioned, this talks about self-harm. Trigger warning for self-harm. I'm gonna talk about it a little bit here, so feel free to skip if you don't want to hear about it. I know it can be sensitive. As a teenager who self-harmed, oh my god, this was such a relatable book. I went to Catholic school from 1st to 9th grade, and I'm also trans, so I had a lot of depression and low points in my life, and just to see this represented was so wild and honestly healed a part of my inner child because of what it says. Oh my god, I actually didn't cry, but I was pretty close too. I love all of the metaphors and ways that flames are connected in this book because I knew it was going to be a metaphor, but I just love how it was done. At the beginning of the book, Aiden talks about how he likes building bonfires, and at the end it says, it takes a lot to put out a fire. You have to constantly douse it with water. The water cuts off the fire's air supply, basically strangling it. When the fire is finally overwhelmed, the flicker will go out, but there are still the hot coals underneath, which are actually even hotter than the flame. You have to completely submerge the coals to make sure they're out. Scout regulation states that a fire has to be hand touched out before leaving it unattended. But sometimes, even when you think the fire is out, you're wrong. My life feels like a mess. There are people I still don't know how to deal with, and family I don't know how to live with. And there are feelings inside of me that scare me to death. But today I discovered the fire isn't done burning. Oh my god. That is so powerful. But I love how he just learns that it's not worth taking your life. There's an afterword and resources at the back for the National Suicide Hotline, Trevor Project, and a couple other LGBT organizations. And I want to read a little bit of the afterword just to touch on the mental health aspect. The author mentions that this is a work of fiction, but most of it is pulled from his real life. He was a Boy Scout. He grew up in the Catholic Church, and it was set in 1995. And at the afterword, he mentions why it was important to set it during this time, as well as why he wanted to add the aspect of self-harming and suicide attempt. Like my character Aiden, I felt overwhelmed by the culture of hatred. Also like Aiden, I once kneeled in a camp chapel with a knife against my wrist. I wanted my anguish to stop. I wanted to silence my fears. I was so scared of high school that I thought I would not survive it. Worst of all, I hated myself. But like Aiden, I found the strength to live. And although living is scary, when we continue to suffer, I would do it all over again to be able to write this book for you. To hope, to dream, to want love, these are dangerous acts. Fear and hope are bound up together inside of us alongside our flaws and our divinity. In this darkness, we can find an inner light to guide us, and there is light in you, even if you can't see it. It didn't get me the first time, but it got me the second time. That is so powerful for a kid to fucking read, and the fact that somebody would want to ban this book makes me so fucking angry, because like I said, I was assigned female at birth, and I presented as female for the majority of my life up until my 20s, and if I just would have had this book as a kid, it would have helped me. Like, I didn't read as a kid at all. And that's a whole other story. I've mentioned that a ton of times on this channel. I'll link my most recent video where I read the book that got me into reading. It was Will Grayson, and I talk more about like my literacy journey. One, if I would have been introduced to graphic novels, it would have helped me a lot with my reading comprehension struggles, and just seeing somebody say that to me, because I had a lot of adults in my life who didn't hear me out, or like, I was always put down by adults in my life, and that definitely added to my mental health issues. But just the fact that this book exists is so important. It's hidden by the library stickers, but there is a blurb that says this book will save lives. And like he said in the audio I shared, it is a disservice for kids to not have this book, or have any book. And that's why book banning fucking pisses me off so much. Holy shit, this was so good. I'm so glad I read it. It healed a part of my inner child, and I highly recommend it. This is another graphic novel, and I didn't even know it was a graphic novel. And it's really interesting that graphic novels keep getting banned, because Flamer was a graphic novel, and now you're trying to do this, and I know these are probably the same people that are like, graphic novels aren't reading. Dude, if I would have gotten graphic novels as a kid, I would have been a better reader. I failed my placement test in college for reading comprehension. My reading comprehension was so bad that I had to take a remedial reading class because I was not given the proper resources in school to make reading fun. Graphic novels are great, and I think this is a great way to learn about health. So I'm gonna get started, and I'll let you know my thoughts. Hi, it's been a while. I've had a lot going on. Today is September 20th, and that means Banned Books Week is coming up in a couple days when this video should come out. However, you can probably hear it in my voice. I'm getting over a sinus infection. What else is new? And I've just had a lot going on, just mentally. I just haven't picked up this video. So I'm here to tell you we're doing a 3-book TBR, okay? I shot Too Close to the Sun, gave myself high expectations, as always, and it is all crumbling down. So here is my new TBR. So far, I have read Flamer. I'm going to finish Let's Talk About It. I am 51 pages in. And then I will end with Lawn Boy. It sucks that I didn't get everything done, but life happens, so I just wanted to update you, let you know. For you, it has not been any time, but for me, it has been so much time that I have not stopped thinking about this video and how I'm not reading for it. But like I said, life happens. things happen and we adjust. Accommodations are a thing. So we're adjusting the video. I'm really excited to read the rest of these books. I am enjoying Let's Talk About It. I will talk about it more when I've finished it, but so far it is just a guide to reproductive health and relationships. You know, in school when you would go into the nurse's office or the counselor's office and there would be those brochures. It's basically that, but in a book, and I would say it is very informative. I like it for teens, but my one complaint is that I think it might just be cheesy. I'm trying to put myself in the head of a teen and if a teen would benefit from this or not. Like, the information they would. So as an adult, I enjoy that this is a resource that kids can pick up at any time, and having it be a graphic novel is really interesting as well and fun because it's not just like a boring nonfiction. It at least answers a lot of questions that kids might have. I really enjoy that part. It is diverse. We have some disability rap, there's some people of color. The table of contents includes what is first, what is a relationship, what are gender and sexuality, what is body image, what is your body, where do you start, what is masturbation, what is safe sex, what is climax, what is sexting, what are kinks, fantasies, and what is aftercare, where are friends in all of this, what is jealousy, what is rejection, and what is next. Just from the table of contents alone, you probably understand why it's banned. This is a great resource for teens to be able to go to and have some of their questions answered. When I was growing up, we had like 17 magazine and they had those, so it's kind of like that, but in a graphic novel. This would be really great to teach in health class. And I just like that we have this. I love guides. And I also love that the dedication is to whoever needs it, whatever your age. It's nice, and I like that we have this. It's very important, especially for kids that don't have parents that they can talk to about it or feel funny talking about it. I think this is a great resource. I'm gonna finish this up and I'll let you know my final thoughts when I'm done. Hello, it's Monday. I'm feeling much better today, and I ended up finishing up Let's Talk About It over the weekend. So let's talk about it. I don't have too much more to say. I will emphasize that I really enjoyed the way that it is affirming. I really like some of the passages I ended up tabbing because it is so affirming and it doesn't make it feel weird. In the gender and sexuality portion, it says, try to be aware and considerate when chatting with others. I'm super keen to chat about this, but gender identity and sexual orientation are deeply personal. Not everybody you meet is going to be comfortable about talking about it. And I like that they include that. Gives the information in a way that doesn't feel too cheesy. I will say the only times I felt it was super cheesy was some of the dialogue. It can be cringe, and I'm just like, okay, I don't think a teen would take you seriously saying certain things like that. All I can think of is this is a better and modernized version of those books that we used to read as kids. I specifically am thinking about like the American Girl ones that were out. I'll have a picture on the screen because I don't know what the title is off the top of my head, but if you know, you know. In the chapter, Where Do You Start? I love this. It says, sex is deeply personal and means different things to different people. It may seem daunting, but as you start to learn about this stuff, you're going to see just how fascinating it can be. There's no one correct way you're supposed to feel about it. Sex can be a space for personal growth and exploration, a world of connection, intimacy, and fun. It's an interesting part of being human, though it's not for everyone. Some folks have little or no interest in it, which is perfectly normal too. I love that that is added because we are talking all about sex and not everybody has a high libido. Not everybody is in tune with having sex. And that is the one little critique that I'll have is I wish it did talk about asexuality a little bit more. It does in the gender and sexuality portion, but it just mentions asexuality, and I am not asexual, so I don't know if it is a great description or not. If you are asexual, you can let me know. The definition they provide is asexuality is having little to no sexual desire or attraction for others. So let me know what you think about that definition. I just wish they had talked about asexuality more because it's a spectrum and there are so many different ways to be ace. There is gray ace, there's demisexuality, there's aromantic, there's so many different things. So I wish that they had expanded more on that because this might be the first time somebody is even learning about asexuality. But overall, I like that this exists. There are illustrations of people and their genitalia, but I actually really enjoyed that representation because it showed trans people, non-binary, etc. And I really enjoyed that representation. And as I was reading and thinking about it being banned or challenged, I was like, have you ever seen a high school textbook? Like, teenagers know what this looks like and also should know. So the fact that this would even be a question, and again, I think this would be a great book to be taught in health class. Also, I'm thinking if I had a teen that I would maybe gift this to them at the start of high school and puberty because it's important to read books like this. That's why I'm comparing it to the about your body books that we got as kids. So I enjoy this. I think that if you have a teen in your life, I would recommend this, and definitely is a good book to maybe read beside them and start asking some questions. This is meant for teens, but honestly, I think I would recommend it to anybody, especially if you're curious and you want to learn a little bit more about the human body and sexuality. It actually goes far into a lot of sexual things, and again, I just think that this is important to have. It also talks about jealousy and rejection, which I really enjoy. It doesn't just stop at gender and sexuality and sex. It goes into everything. So I recommend this if you just want to pick it up. Now, I did start Lawn Boy, meaning I think I read like the first sentence. The reading, I just have not been feeling it. You know, like when you get sick, you're just like getting back into the groove of things. And speaking of that, my next video that I'm probably gonna film is a fall reset. And I'm like, you know what? This is actually the perfect time to film that because I am getting reset since I was sick. Since it is Banned Books Week, PEN America actually shared stats, which is great because when I started this video, I only had the 2023 stats. So let's go over this really quick and I'll have it linked down below. It says 10,000 book bans and counting between July 1st, 2023 and June 30th, 2024. Think about that. That is obscene. That is horrible. I hate that. This is nearly triple the number from the previous school year. About 8,000 bans were recorded in Florida and Iowa alone. Think about that. 8,000 books were banned. Just sit and think about that. It makes me so angry. Much of the stark increase in book bans is made up of books featuring romance, books about women's sexual experiences, and books about rape and sexual abuse. Bans continue to disproportionately impact LGBTQ+ stories, frequently by labeling any gay or trans content as obscene or overly sexual. Books about race and racism and books featuring characters of color have been disproportionately targeted. Our numbers are certainly an undercount as stories of book bans often go reported. Like I said, I'll link it down below as well as PEN America's website if you just want to learn more. 10,000 book bans and 8,000 books across Florida and Iowa being banned is fucking disgusting. Like, I hate it so much. Book bans are something that makes my blood boil, and it's very important to talk about this year round. Ashley from Bookish Realm, she has a lot of great videos about book bans and the most recent stuff, as well as Reads with Rachel, so the links will be down below for their content. It makes me so mad. Censorship is so ridiculous, and it makes me really sad for the kids that will not be able to read these books. Oh my god. So I'm glad that I am doing this video to be able to bring light to this issue and to the books. So last up is Lawn Boy. 100% into Lawn Boy. So far, I'm liking it. There is a lot of language that I personally don't like. There's the F slur a lot of times from other characters. There's a lot of racism, and there's also talk about disabilities. Our main character, Mike, his brother is disabled, and I just hate the language. The R word is present. I heard it for the first time on the audiobook and I was jarred, honestly. This came out in 2017 and I believe it's just because it's like the language of where Mike grew up and things like that, but I just don't think it's ever excusable to use that word. I don't. I hate that word with a burning passion. I hate that so much. This book is not tame whatsoever. It is for adults. Despite having won a young adult award, I am going to play you my voiceover. I found the author's blog post from 2021 where he talks about Lawn Boy being banned in Texas. So let's go over to past Alex reading the blog post. The first week of September, at a school board meeting in Texas, a woman lobbied fiercely to get one of my novels, Lawn Boy, banned from libraries for content relating to my gay protagonist and his gay life experiences. My protagonist, Mike, has a sexual experience at a youth group meeting at the age of 10 with another 10-year-old boy, which Mike is still ashamed of in his early adulthood. In the days that followed the woman's lobby, a video of a school board meeting went viral on TikTok and elsewhere, in which the woman read a few graphic passages with absolutely no context beyond the fact that her fourth grader had got his hands on this book, possibly mistaking it with Gary Paulson's book by the same name. That's all it took before I began to receive a steady stream of threats, both overt and veiled, to my messenger. Mostly men, but a number of women too, calling me gay and accusing me of grooming young boys, and in some instances threatening me with harm should I ever set foot in the state of Texas or Arkansas. Of all the conversations I hoped to engage writing a coming-of-age novel about empty promises of the American dream for so many, be it wealth inequity, social inequity, racism, sexual identity, I assure you, was not one of them. What really saddens and alarms me about all of this is the fact that beyond the fourth grader who mistakenly brought Lawn Boy home, again, the book was in no way intended for a 10-year-old, and his mom, who at the very least turned every page counting fucks and shits, I am quite confident that not a single person threatening me or lobbying to ban my book even read a single passage of Lawn Boy beyond those few isolated passages read on the TikTok video. That's all it took to mobilize their blind hatred and zealous call to arms to ban my book. They didn't even read it. That's what we're still up against today. A streak of anti-intellectualism that runs so deep in America that people feel they no longer need to inform themselves before they make the decision to ban a book or seek to destroy the reputation of a father of three. Like Jonathan says, this book is vulgar, it is meant for adults, the main character is 23, and it is not tame by any means. There is a lot going on here. It talks about the American dream, poverty, racism, sexuality, etc. Characters like Mike are very important to have and can be relatable to a lot of people, especially if you were a late bloomer and you grew up like Mike, where he is being told that being gay is bad and he is so resentful for his feelings towards men. Yeah, there's a lot of homophobia. His coworker says a joke that is so stupid, and honestly doesn't even make any sense. Mike replies, "Why are you always bashing people? Mexicans, F-word, lesbians, I don't get why they offend you so much. What did a Mexican or a F-word ever do to you?" And Nick doesn't answer, just sips his beer irritably. "Seriously, I just don't get it, Nick. You don't even have a reason." "Duh, Michael, look around. They're all taking our jobs. They don't pay taxes." And then he goes, "They don't pay taxes? What?" And then Mike drops a killer bomb and says, "You hate these people because you're scared, Nick. Because you're insecure about your own intelligence, your own sexuality, your own measly job, because you." And just like that, Nick stood up without a word and walked out of Tequila's. The truth is, I was glad to see him go, but still, I couldn't believe it. I've never seen him leave a full picture like that. Lots of alcoholism with our character Nick here, but honestly, it really shows this setting of how many homophobic people are there, because I believe this is set in the South. But you get my point. This is really talking about how there's a lot of internalized homophobia in men and just masculinity in general. And so I'm excited to see where this goes. I wanted to talk to you about Lawn Boy, but the reason I actually turned on the camera was because the American Library Association posted on their Instagram about how you can help stop book banning and advocate for them. I'm also going to link down below a TikTok that I saw yesterday from Reads with Rachel, and she talks more about how she figured out about book banning in her area. So shout out to Rachel for making that video. I was so happy when I saw that because I felt like I wasn't giving you enough resources on how we can stop book banning. Besides the other things that I've said, like little free libraries and things, one crucial thing is voting local. This really helps to kick out the people who are on the school board and making these decisions. But let's go over what American Library Association says. The freedom to read is under attack. Let's do something about it. If you have 5 minutes, register to vote, or make sure your voter registration is up to date. Take the Freedom to Read voter pledge. Commit to voting for the freedom to read. Support policies and policymakers that support the right to read for everyone in our diverse communities. I'll definitely be doing that. If you have 15 minutes, find out what's on your ballot. Are there positions in your local government or school board up for election? What about propositions or ballot measures that might impact schools, libraries, or booksellers? Download a sample ballot from your state election office or use a resource like ballotready.org or vote411.org to find out what's happening in your local elections. If you have 30 minutes, ask your candidates where they stand on book bans. Want to know what a candidate thinks about censorship? Ask them. Contact your local candidates and ask them to respond to questions about where they stand on book bans. I love that. I think that's really important. If you have an hour or more, attend a town hall or rally, help prepare for your community elections. That's all that they provided, but I think that is so important. I also want to point out something that I frankly was negligent about and need to add to this video, because besides queer books being targeted, I've given you all the statistics. We know how much BIPOC and queer stories are being targeted and banned. Palestinian authors are also dealing with this. So I'm gonna head over to my computer and read you the facts. This is Hannah Mushbeck, and I want to thank her for sharing this. She shared, if your banned books, displays, and events don't include Palestinians, you are contributing to the bans you say you're against. And she's absolutely right. I will link her Instagram down below. She is the author of the children's picture book, Homeland, My Father Dreams of Palestine. I'm gonna read you a couple excerpts from 2 articles that I found. First is prismreports.org, and this is from November 30th, 2023, and it says, BIPOC and queer books are banned proactively and systemically across the country. Palestinian books, I would say, are pre-banned, or they receive more localized ad hoc attacks. She explains that the pipeline of soft censorship begins with Palestinian narratives being rejected by agents because they think the story will be hard to sell. So fewer books featuring Palestinian narratives, whether it be by Palestinians or non-Palestinians, are published. And that is why it is so crucial that we buy and read Palestinian works because of that alone. Hannah Mushbeck has faced an uphill battle promoting her debut picture book, Homeland, My Father Dreams of Palestine. Major trade publications did not review her book. She spent her own money on marketing, and her book received multiple 1-star reviews on Amazon from unverified purchasers in a practice called review bombing, which is also used against LGBT and other diverse books. And especially now more than ever, it is very important that we uplift our voices and know what's going on in the book community for Palestinian authors. And it's really important that we support them through this. I'm also going to read a 2017 article that I read. Palestinian children's book becomes a target for boycott and censorship. This is by Erika, and she's talking about being a new parent and looking for picture books, and she is excited when she sees a book called P is for Palestine. The book is fantastic on so many different levels. It features a little girl with curly black hair, big eyes, and brown skin. The illustrations are gorgeous, and it teaches the alphabet through egalitarian and multicultural words from both Arabic and English, like C is for Christmas, E is for Eid, but nothing Palestinian related, no matter how anodyne, can be consumed safely in America, let alone the Upper West Side. This video is already getting super long, so I'm gonna do a quick voiceover and tell you what happened here. So the author of P is for Palestine was invited to do a storytime reading at Book Culture's Upper West Side location in New York City. This caused backlash, and anti-Palestinian activists called for a boycott of the store. So you would think that the store would support the author, but they didn't. They put out a statement that was just basically like backtracking, and it was not great. Now, they didn't technically take the book out of their store. However, if you walked in the store, you wouldn't see it because it was behind the counter, and you have to ask a store clerk or someone working the register for a copy. That is unacceptable. I hate that for the author, first and foremost, because as a children's book publicist, I know how hard it is to even get children's book attention and also get them into bookstores, and that is so unacceptable, and I feel so bad for the author. But the good news is the book ended up selling out, so that's great. So that is all on that. You can read the whole article linked in my description. Hello, it's Friday. I finished up Lawn Boy last night, so let's talk about it and close out this video so I can get it up today. I really enjoyed this. The slurs still made me really uncomfortable. The F slur is in here so many times that I wonder if it surpasses the amount of curse words. But I want to talk about the end, because as I was nearing the end, I was nervous because it felt like it was going in a way where it wasn't going to wrap up and we weren't going to get any character development. I was having a feeling it was just going to be like commentary about how not everybody comes out or realizes their sexuality, which I think that would be a valid ending. However, I really enjoyed the ending. It made me really happy. There is some minor transphobia from that character Nick that I talked about. He is the worst. Mike ends up coming out to him. He says, "Oh, just don't get a sex change." And Mike was like, "Well, I'm not transgender." And I'm just like... But anyway, this was not a bad book. Like, I would recommend it. I just want to let you know how heavy this is. Like, this is not a sweet contemporary. This has a lot of layers. There's a lot of shit going on. Basically, Mike wants to be a landscaper. He likes to make topiaries, and this is him just trying to get by and get a job that he can sustain to be able to move out of his family's house. And honestly, it is so relatable in that sense. He also grew up in poverty, and there's so many times that he is relating experiences. There's this one scene where he talks about something being broken, and he talks about it with like either his coworkers or friends or whatever. Their reply is, "Why don't you just buy a new one?" And we get Mike's inner thoughts of being like, these people don't get it. I don't think people that are financially stable enough understand my hardships here and struggles with money. I can't just buy a new one because then maybe I can't afford rent or I can't afford something. And there's so many times that he talks about the discrepancy about money, and most of the workers that employ him don't want to pay him more because he's Mexican. There's a specific scene where someone that he knew or worked for asks if he knows any Mexicans, and he says, "What do you mean by that?" And the guy replies, "Someone cheap, somebody that I can pay cheap." And throughout the whole book, Mike talks about how he is being underpaid because he's Mexican. I think that is such an important thing to add. So overall, I really enjoyed the message of this book, and I think it's really important for people to read, especially if you grew up like Mike and maybe still are, because the economy is fucking shit, especially the job force, and everything is going to shit in the US of A. But I enjoyed this. I would recommend it, but please look out for the trigger warnings. So that is it for Lawn Boy. Let me know if you've read it, and that is it for my banned books reading vlog. If you enjoyed this video, the best way to support this channel is to leave a comment and hit like. It really helps my channel because it will boost this video to the algorithm and it'll let more people know that I'm here, and also they can learn more about banned books. That's why we're all here. Feel free to let me know in the comments what your favorite banned book is, or if you're gonna pick up any of the books that I mentioned in this video. It's really important that we know about banned books year round, not just this week. It is super important. So I am definitely going to continue to seek out content about banned books because it's a topic that I'm really passionate about. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to check my description for all of the resources that I've mentioned in this video, and then some. I have 2 GoFundMes for Palestinian families in Gaza, so I would really appreciate if you checked it out. Thank you again for watching, and I hope to see you in my next video very soon. Bye.